Hey, college football fans. Happy Thursday, October 9th. Just 2 days until these big matchups come. I couldn't be more excited. I think there's going to be a lot of really good games. Obviously, there's some epic matchups, and it's going to kind of sort out the whole who's better than who in this conference and or who's positioned to succeed at this point in the season. We'll see. There's been a lot of good debates. There's been a lot of arrogant talk and chat in the comments of a lot of different YouTube podcasters, and I'm here for it. I really enjoy it. But I'm not here to talk about the games in this video. This video is a follow-up / part 2 to the love letter to Dan Lanning that I posted yesterday. There were so many things that I didn't include in that video, and I definitely need to bring the proper respect and address all of the things that make Dan Lanning such an epic coach. The reason why people like Adam Brenneman said that he thinks Dan Lanning is positioned to be the best college football coach in college football history, 20 years from now, looking back. He actually made that comment a week ago on his podcast with Butt and Brenneman. And I totally knew where he was coming from. You might say it's inflammatory. You might say it's absurd. You might say it's delusional. But if you're following the Oregon program and you're seeing what Dan is doing and the rest of the staff and what their intentions are and their goals for the future, you know exactly where Adam was coming from and why he said what he said. Now, to be the best coach in college football history, you're obviously going to be compared to Nick Saban. This is not a I hate Nick Saban video. But if you've looked at any of my other content, you'll know that I am not a huge fan of Nick Saban. I think that his air of superiority, while not admitting that he and other teams in the SEC paid players to come play for them, to build those rosters with 5-star after 5-star, and to just be, a dominant smash mouth program, is not something that a legacy should be built off of and then be glorified. You may say I'm wrong. I don't mind. I've always looked at the SEC as being overhyped because they had a double standard. They were able to pay players when other conferences weren't. They didn't get sanctioned or penalized, major violations, when they were doing the exact same thing, if not much, much worse, in programs like USC with Reggie Bush. They did not get their Heismans taken away. In fact, the SEC is so corrupt and so pathetically biased that the Heisman voters for the SEC won't even put any other players from other conferences on their ballots. They literally leave them off the ballot just because they're so afraid that anybody with the SEC would get a Heisman. That's pure bitch behavior. If you can't admit that other players are ballers and deserving of the title of Heisman if they have performed to a level that earns them that, you don't know ball. Dan Lanning knows ball. The people that are super hyped on Dan Lanning know ball. I went into depth a little bit yesterday about Oregon's history with coaches, what we've been through, the expectations that we've had, and how those didn't get met, and or we suffered through being a stepping stone for other coaches like Willie Taggart, Mario Cristobal. Go back and look at my first love letter to Dan if you'd like, and you'll see exactly why I have issues with those coaches and why they left the program and then what their intentions were for leaving the program. I couldn't be more optimistic and just so grateful for having Dan Lanning be our head coach. The guy is a football guru. He has the personality to connect with people. He has the mental fortitude to handle situations, to adapt, to face adversity, and progress. On top of, the guy is just a stud. When you're, listening to him doing interviews post-game, during the week, on the field after a win, you're just like, dude, this guy's energy is just unmatched. Dan Lanning and Dan Campbell from the NFL, the Detroit Lions, are the two best coaches in football, college, NFL. There might be some insanely, awesome high school coach out there that we don't know about yet, but he's not doing what Lanning and Campbell are. And I knew the first time I ever watched that Hard Knocks season on the Lions that Dan Campbell was just wired different. As soon as I saw the first episode of that season of Hard Knocks, I told everybody, I'm like, dude, the Lions, they're building something special. As that Hard Knocks season progressed, it just became more and more aware or apparent to me that Dan Campbell was just the guy. I mean, there's guys that know X's and O's, then there's guys that know ball. Then there's guys that know ball and locker rooms. Then there's guys that know ball, locker rooms, and also can scout talent and understand how their abilities and skill sets and mindsets and attitudes will fit into their culture. Dan Campbell, he went, I think they lost their first 6 games the first season he was there, but he knew who to get and how to build a program. They drafted Penei Sewell from Oregon. Penei is the most dominant offensive lineman in the league. He's also the most versatile offensive lineman in the league. I mean, there's other guys that might be a little bit better at, certain different offensive skill sets, but there's nobody that's as well-rounded and dominant as Penei is. And that is because they knew that guy was a stud. Penei knows ball. Penei is a baller. Dan Lanning, he looks for ballers. Dan Lanning didn't recruit Penei, but he was very well aware that those were the type of players that he needed to build a program with and have success in the future. Dan Lanning is so much more intelligent and so much more articulate, and yet so much more grounded in his emotions and confident in his emotions than any other coach in the country. When you compare Lanning to a Nick Saban, it's night and day. I mean, they're complete opposites. Besides, I guess, Lanning's desire to have a little bit of a surliness to him, especially last season in his weekly interviews. I think that the 2023 season really changed his perception of his program and how he interacted with media. And he didn't want to just be somebody who's coming up with sound bites and, getting hit with the he's great for a quote, but what do they win? So I think Lanning's mentality changed the last season in 2024. And I was a little disappointed. And I was also kind of a little bit satisfied with how he was addressing the media at that time, because I thought him adopting the mentality or at least kind of the attitude that Nick Saban used to approach the media with was a sign that he was maturing, a sign that he understood the media doesn't matter. I don't have to engage with them in a way that makes them love me more because my team loves me. And with Ducks versus Them, highlighting all of the things that are going on behind the scenes and showcasing how good of a program that is, how well the development goes, the connection and the brotherhood within the team. I mean, it's the best look inside a program that I've ever seen in my life, besides maybe the one season of the Detroit Lions Hard Knocks. But the Ducks are doing it year after year after year, so we get to watch this program build. When I say Dan Lanning is better than Nick Saban, in my opinion, it's because, first and foremost, it's his attitude and energy. Nick Saban used to walk the sidelines of every game like this. Literally, hunched up, arms crossed, angry, scared. He didn't have anything to really be scared of. They always had the most dominant team basically on the field in every single matchup under Nick Saban. He accrued insane talent. He was a really good coach and developer. But when you're using 5-stars and high 4-star guys, and you're replacing them with 5-star and 4-star guys, your roster is going to be awesome. I mean, you should have a competitive advantage across the board against any team that you're going to be playing against. But Nick Saban always had this energy, like he was scared. And when his players would make minor mistakes, let alone major mistakes, but it was the little mistakes that really showed Nick Saban's character to people like me. When they'd come off the field and he'd go over to him uncross his arm and cuss him out. Famous for overreacting and being crazy aggressive and emotional when he would be addressing players, during game time that may have erred or screwed up. I always thought that was a symptom of him being afraid that the team was making him look bad. It wasn't about the team. If it was about the team, you wouldn't chastise somebody so aggressively and intensely and basically show how much angry and how much anger and how little emotional control you have about just dealing with some issues that it's like, hey man, I could totally come over to you and just tell you screwed up and say, hey, we got to get this better, instead of just berating players like Nick Saban used to do. To me, that's a symptom of somebody who has very low self-esteem, who always needs the constant validation from the outside world, the media, the fans, the wins, to prove that he's a winner. He's not a tall guy. He's not particularly handsome. He's not charismatic. And yet everybody anoints him as this GOAT in college football, put him on the pedestal. Well, he doesn't deserve to be there, in my opinion. His wins, a lot of those have asterisks. I think that there's going to be a lot of things that come out in the future about Nick Saban and the dynasty that he built at Alabama that are going to show that there was a lot of things going on in that program that were not above board. If you don't believe me, you can go back and look at Jimbo Fisher and his press conference talking about Nick Saban and the skeletons in his closet. Just because Nick Saban made a comment about how Jimbo was buying up all of the 5-star players and all the best talent when the first year of NIL was enacted. And Jimbo replied, what did he say? Oh yeah, well, Nick just said that you're just buying all the players. That's what the reporter told him. And he said, that guy's calling the kettle black. The pot is calling the kettle black. The guy who's paid players year after year after year when you're not allowed to pay players and got his championships off of that foundation is calling me out for paying players when it's now legal to do it. And he went off. Jimbo went off. It literally pissed him off so much. And now you see today, there's huge storylines about Bill Belichick at North Carolina, who is, I guess, widely considered Nick Saban's best friend. I've seen all of the documentaries about those two. I know that they're incredibly close, but their connection is through football. They're football minds. They're geniuses and savants about football, but neither of those guys really get people. Neither of them really understand friendship and true connectivity. They understand X's and O's. They understand wins and losses. They are insanely driven to win. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it is when you have toxic energy inside yourself that is constantly driving you to validate yourself in the eyes of everybody around you. And that's exactly what Nick Saban did forever. When he retired, it was because he knew his era was over. The guy didn't have the ability to recruit at the high level anymore because he couldn't pay players anymore at the same level or have it be so unbalanced like it was when NIL wasn't a thing. Dan Lanning can recruit his ass off. Lanning is brilliant at being able to just talk to people and look them in the eye and tell them the truth, and then see if they'll even fit his culture. Because it's not about just throwing a bag at guys. It's not about just getting the guys with the best talent. They have to have the mindset and the ethos that's going to back up what Lanning is trying to build year after year after year at Oregon. And his usage of the transfer portal is phenomenal. There might not be a better coach in the nation for transfer portal acquisitions. And Oregon doesn't lose starters to the transfer portal. So that retention is also a huge factor that goes into why Dan Lanning and his program are continuing to succeed and develop players. It's so much easier to develop players when they stay in your system. And the narrative that, Oregon can't develop players is so antiquated, it's ridiculous. But, when other programs are looking at Oregon and they're basically hate watching and hoping and praying that they're going to lose because they're so afraid of actually having to match up with Oregon in the playoffs or in a Big Ten championship, it's very telling. You see the energy that they're putting out there. You see how they come up with excuses over and over and over to explain Lanning's success and why so many people view him as such a powerful presence in the coaching landscape. And he is a dominant presence. Every time that guy is in a room, everybody turns to him. And it's not, he doesn't even have to say anything. It's just because you know he has integrity and intensity and some sort of magical brilliance that is going to help his team succeed. That is so unquantifiable. And it's so underappreciated outside of the Oregon program. I think that Oregon fans have a really good understanding and sensitivity of people's energy. There's a lot of green grass out here, and we're tuned in, and we have definitely pretty good high IQs for football since we've been, competing at mid to high to elite, then back to mid or high levels. And we've seen how college football has evolved and changed and grown over the years. And Lanning is the best guy to have helming your team in this new era, with recruiting being what it is, with NIL, with the transfer portal, with these extended seasons and multiple playoff games. Anybody who thinks that Oregon didn't get screwed by the seeding in the playoffs last year doesn't know ball. That was atrocious. That Oregon should not have been playing Ohio State. They went undefeated. They had the number 1 seed, and yet they got matched up, like very unfairly, essentially, with Ohio State as their first game in the playoffs. They should have been meeting each other in the national championship. Oregon should have never had to have played a 9 seed that is Ohio State. Everybody knew Ohio State was the top 5 team, at least. And in this year's playoff model, it's not going to happen that way. So to all the people out there who want to, put down or dismiss Dan Lanning and the Oregon program, just know you're going to look foolish in the long run. Oregon hasn't won a national championship yet. Oregon will win a national championship because of Dan Lanning. I can say that with full sincerity and believe that I will see that natty within the next 5 years if Lanning stays. I'm going to put that down for posterity, so anybody can come and clown me if I'm wrong, but I doubt there's going to be a lot of people that actually come and try to refute what I'm saying and what my beliefs are for our future. Dan Lanning's just blind loyalty to Oregon, and it really is semi-blind because he has blinders on around the rest of the college football nation, all of the media. It doesn't get to him. All he cares about is getting his guys, his team, and his staff on the same page and playing to the best of their ability week in and week out. He doesn't look ahead. He doesn't dwell in the past. He learns from his mistakes. I mean, those are the qualities you have to have in an elite head coach to be an elite program. I can't imagine anybody else coming into college football head coaching positions in the next 10 years that is going to match Dan Lanning's skill set and dominance in what he's already established and proven to be what he's going to produce than what Dan's done. And I just love the dude. Everybody I know loves the dude. He's somebody that you want to, invite to a barbecue or a birthday party or just go chit chat with about, fucking football or life, everything in between. And when you have somebody that has the ability to do that, it's the most comforting feeling as a football fan, because you got the captain of captains leading your team. So Dan, we appreciate you like none other. I fully believe you are going to be the best college football coach in college football history in 20 years, reflecting that will be your title. You have everything that Nick Saban had as actual positive attributes, plus so much more without the toxicity and the insecurity issues. You also have learned from, Kirby Smart and other coaches, Mike Norvell, Todd Graham, a bunch of guys that are really, really effective, good coaches and seem to be good people, but you've also learned what not to do through their mistakes. And if you don't think that that's just straight up brilliance to not, make the same mistakes that the others around you have made and to let them show you how to not, fail, then you don't know ball. Because so many people just, think that it's going to be different because of their program, and they just are arrogant and think, well, I didn't do that and that wasn't a part of our thing, so we won't fall into that same trap or make those same mistakes. Instead of just going like, well, if an elite program like Georgia makes those mistakes, we're very capable of making those mistakes. How do we counteract that, or how do we prevent that from happening in the future without ever having it happen? How do we get ahead of stuff that could be a problem for us? That's next level coaching. And Tosh Lupoi is the man. Will Stein is the man. Kenny Dillingham, Dan's first OC here at Oregon for 1 year, is the man. You see all of the people, all of the high quality humans and leaders that Dan Lanning's brought into his Oregon program to build the program through and with. They're going to keep continuing to get elite athlete after elite athlete to build the program with and succeed in the future. If you're a recruit, I mean, how could you look at Dan Lanning compared to other coaches in the nation and be like, yeah, the other coach is better? I mean, if you can, you obviously don't fit the Oregon program because you don't have the intelligence or the, awareness and or the mindset to come succeed in a place like Oregon. Oregon is a place that is a bit like an NFL team. You got to travel. To get here is not super easy. To leave here to go play away games is not super easy. It's all about the mindset and preparation and how you're going to do that and execute it. So, Dan Lanning, thank you very much for choosing Oregon. We love you. And I can't wait to watch you just keep on winning, buddy.